Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by Jennifer Hicks and Teresa Myers. They are Nia Technique teachers and trainers who teach somatic fitness and movement through the lens of embodied social justice. Through sensation and movement, they help women create a sense of safety, dignity, and belonging for themselves and others through their Nia Technique classes, workshops, and trainings. Teresa is a founding member of and consultant to Nia Technique's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and Jennifer is a council member. They consult to organizations on the intersection of movement and embodied social justice. They regularly provide workshops to their Nia community on social justice-related topics such as diversity, oppression in the body, diversity, body acceptance, and privilege, the currents of health. They also use social media as a way to educate about social justice issues. Jennifer is a founding member of the Rebel Body Collective, which is a community of weight-neutral, size-inclusive, health at every size aligned, body liberation oriented movement professionals, and is a size inclusive fitness specialist. My goodness, you both are doing so much. We're so excited to talk to y'all. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. I don't know about Raquel, but the first thing I want to know is how did the two of you start working together?
Great question. Teresa, do you want to field this one?
Yeah, I'll start. So Jen and I used to see each other for years, once a year at a big Nia event. And for me, there's certain people in my life who you can go spans of time and not see each other, and then you see each other and all of that time just disappears. Jen was one of those individuals. And then she and I both got selected to be in the same Nia training class. And when I walked into Portland, where this meeting was being held, Jen was one of the only people that I knew in the room. So I just kind of gravitated to her. And then she and I became training partners. We worked through the training together. And through that, we got to know each other and each other's hearts. And through all of the different social justice issues that came up, whether through the pandemic and medical inequity after the George Floyd murder and racial inequity, she knew my heart. She embraced my heart. She needed to truly be an ally. And those are hard to come by. And I am so grateful to have her in my life, both personally and professionally.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. And it always felt like a natural connection to me, Teresa, when we were going through the training together. And it felt like, who else would I want to be a training partner with? And who else would I want to spend all those many hours with, in that we learned so much about how in alignment we are in terms of social justice issues. So, yeah.
And plus I would add, we are in a lot of other ways, while we have the same values, we really complete each other. We are
nice.
She is much more creative. I'm much more process oriented. So we balance each other out. Awesome. That way, if I get too much in my head process-wise, she'll say, oh, creative, let's be more creative. And hopefully I balance that out for her as well.
Definitely.
For those who don't know, what is Nia?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Nia is a 40-year-old practice. This year is its 40th anniversary. And when it was founded back in the 80s, it was at the height of the sort of Jane Fonda jump aerobics era. Mm. And at that time, the people who founded it, Carlos Rosas and Debbie Rosas, were in the aerobics industry, and finding that both themselves and their students were incurring a lot of injuries. So they thought, there's got to be a better way to move our bodies more mindfully and with more respect for the design of the body. So they stepped away from traditional aerobics, and the sort of most revolutionary thing that they did at the time was they took off their shoes. To this day, Nia is a barefoot practice that through their research and through their own personal experience, they combined different movement forms. So there are 9 different movement forms that span the dance arts, the martial arts, and the healing arts. It looks like a fitness practice, and it is a fitness practice, but it also has a lot more heart and soul. We learn about ways to treat our bodies with respect based on the design, learn a lot just about how to live life as a decent human being. And it's fun. The music is inspiring. It attracts people of all walks of life. It's really adaptable, accessible for different fitness movement levels. It's, for me, I think Teresa and I, we both are around 17 years teaching. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a major part of both of our lives.
I want to kind of jump right into the social justice part of this. How do you guys tie Nia to social justice work?
I'll go first, Jen, and then you can jump in. So embodied social justice is an emerging field that is really taking a look at how the body is influenced by being in societies that are unequal,
Mm-hmm.
and how that inequality affects a body. And I think a lot of times, and kind of before this emerging field, we really talked about maybe the mental aspect of being othered. But what does that really do to the body when it is othered? And we have a saying in Nia, and I know somebody else has said it before, but I can't think of the person, but there's issues in the tissue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those social norms that say here in the United States that somebody who looks like me is lesser than, how does that equate in my body? What does that do to my body? How does that make my body feel? 1960s, the US has made these advancements. Things should be better. But those social norms and the generations of my ancestors are in my tissue. And so how is my body responding to that?
How is your body responding? Like, what are some of the things people feel?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is a lot of people don't feel. They numb out.
Yes.
Good point.
They numb out, right? And their body is in a constant state of freeze. And so one of the things that somatic and movement does is to help move that body out of freeze and helps it to start to sense again, right? And for me, the one thing that I always say when I'm working with populations is the biggest takeaway that I want people to have is the awareness that there are times that things are happening where I might want to numb, but it should be my choice and I need to be aware. Or if I start to feel my body numbing, being able to have that conversation, is this the right time to numb? That awareness that that is what my body is doing. Because there are times that that is an adequate and appropriate stress response, but that might not be the necessary response.
So Teresa, let me just have you re-say that, because this is something Raquel and I have talked about. It is okay to numb yourself if that's what you need right now.
Right. But the important part is, are you aware that that is your choice?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
And that's what Jen and I spend a lot of time, is helping people to be able to come into that choice making.
And I think too, like both of us have had personal experiences where this numbing out has been protective for various reasons. I had a medical situation where it was my psyche's way of protecting myself to numb out. So coming into this practice of Nia, where I was reacquainted with the idea that my body can sense and feel, that I can have a relationship with sensation, was really pivotal to my recovery and to this day to my overall well-being, because I'm really in my body. I'm not where I was in my head, and I can choose, like Teresa's saying, it's a choice to know when it's safe to be in my body, and it's a choice to also protect myself if there is a need for that.
And maybe this is a simple question, but how do you know when it's safe for you to be in your body? How do you know when it's safe to feel what you need to feel and to not numb?
Well, I think that is one of the beauties of somatics and Nia, is that we talk about, yes, there is the body's way and there is the body's design, but then we are each so individually unique in our experiences, right? So then it becomes, okay, here's the body, but now let's get to know about my unique body. So then it really does become about my body, and what my body needs is different than any other body on this planet. So understanding that uniqueness and getting an opportunity to learn about me and what my body needs in the moment.
And for me, it was a process of learning and unlearning how to be in relationship with sensation, how to allow myself to feel. You may have heard the phrase "feeling to heal." You have to feel to heal, and talked about that from an emotional level, but also from a physical level. Like, if I don't allow myself to feel, how can I have empathy, compassion? How can I be a human being who wants justice for all if I don't allow myself that to be my true person, like the world doesn't really want me to do that because of capitalism, white supremacy, and all of that. It's how I can become my best person.
It sounds like what you're saying is becoming your best self allows you to help society become its best self.
One of the things that we do is we start with ourselves, right? My body needs to be able to sense for safety, dignity, and belonging, and truly believe and understand that that is a coded birthright for me.
Yeah.
And once I feel it for myself, and once I understand what it means to feel safe in my body, what it means to feel dignity and belonging in my body, I can't help but want that for everybody else. Right? And once I understand it's a birthright and I sense and feel it, then I want everybody to sense and feel that.
I think you just hit on something really important for me. I don't think I've ever felt safe in my body. But what I was going to ask before that, because I'm unclear on this, what does somatic mean?
So in the shortness, it means of the body, right? So so the study of the movement of coming from the body.
Okay.
There's a really interesting gentleman now. I wish I could give him credit, but he talked about the idea of being disembodied and having a brain taxi. So body being a vehicle for the brain. I know for me, before I came to this practice, I was like carrying around my brain just in this vessel that I had no connection with. Like you're saying, Jennifer, I didn't feel safe in my body because society was telling me my body was wrong.
Yep. Or attacking it.
Yeah.
Or attacking it. Yeah. I mean, in so many ways. Yeah. I just, because of these, Eurocentric norms, social norms that really are meant, to sell me diet products and so on, to make me feel bad about myself, that I didn't ever feel safe in my body because it didn't ever measure up to anything. And now I find as I've become like I've learned to trust my body, it's like really this is about having a relationship with oneself. That's how I see it, is that I have learned how to be in relationship with my body and to start to trust it. And I mean, this is 17 years in, and I still have a lifetime of work to do. Like there's no quick fix. I just feel like it's a process of getting to know myself outside of this. Like, I lived up here for too many years exclusively. So
for brand new people, what are some of the very beginning things that they do in the practice to embody or get in touch with themselves?
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. I was recently doing a podcast. My history is I've had an eating disorder, anorexia, as an adult. And I was doing a podcast for a clinic that treats people with eating disorders. And so for everyone, it looks different because there can be very scary, for example, for someone with an eating disorder to sense their breath because they're expanding their body, and maybe not want sense that taking up space. And that's exactly where I came from. I came from this very like shy, reserved. And the only thing I can say for me in my experience was that I was faking it until I made it, forcing myself to practice. And the key thing is that this relationship with sensation. So every time I step, am I in my head thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner, or am I really feeling how my foot really connects with the floor and really it's mindfulness, it's present to sensation is sort of where it begins. But again, there's like if history of trauma, history of what there, as we said, there could be a reason for numbing out. So first, it has to happen in a way that makes sense. And one of our colleagues does trauma-informed Nia training, which has enlightened me to this as well. And I think as a field of professionals, we could do more work in that area for sure.
I think really the beginning really goes back to whether it's Nia or any other type of practice to make sure that they are creating a safe container for individuals to be able to walk in so that they can be met with wherever they are in life. One of the things I continuously, talk about is I might put up with microaggressions day in and day out at a job for my paycheck, but I'm definitely not going to walk into a situation where I have to pay for anything, whether it's an exercise class, whether, get my hair done, a grocery store, and I'm not going to pay to be mistreated. So the more that the fitness industry, the mindful practice industry understands that, that safe container has to be created if you want to expand the diversity of those who participate.
Teresa, on your website, you said to ask you what you did after Trayvon Martin was killed and to ask you what you did after the mass shootings at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. What did you do?
I put music on. I centered myself and I brought in all my Nia tools and I moved my body and moved the feelings, the emotions, whether it was anger, sadness, disbelief of seeing the Confederate flag being marched through the Capitol, disbelief to numbing, just hearing here in the United States of some of the words that come out of politicians' mouths as they try to twist the word woke. I spend a lot of time moving here of late and keep reminding myself that these individuals are not going to throw me off of my axis of safety and that I belong here and that I deserve the dignity and the equality of every other U.S. citizen. And I am not going to let them, I'm not going to let them win. And so every time I show up and I am grounded and I exude safety and I exude dignity and I exude belonging, I just have to believe that that energy throws them off of their axis.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for saying all of that. And I'm so grateful that you have this practice to help you release that, because we know that holding all that in is so damaging. That's what they want, right? And you're not letting them do that.
No, and that it's going to come out one way or
Yeah.
another, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
will it come out in forms of aches and pains or depression or anxiety? I mean, it's going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to leak some way.
Yeah. Our country is in such an awful state right now, and it comes and goes and ebbs and flows. And I'm just curious how maybe before Nia, how you would have maybe responded to some of what's going on right now, and how you've seen that difference kind of play out. And I know you did mention, after Trayvon was murdered and after the murders at Emmanuel Church, but just kind of like as a general everyday, like, how does this look for you?
I would say before I would have numbed or I would have just pretended that it wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, which is probably, would be a whole podcast in its own right. The other thing that I won't let happen now is for people to, I'll call it spiritually bypass
Okay.
me with these things and just say, oh, Teresa, all we need is kind of hope and love and things will be better. No,
love and light.
love and light, right? And I would have just kind of soaked all that in, right? Because being numb, not really wanting to think about it, and then just saying love and light will fix it. That's probably where I was. And now it's like, oh no. Right? If you want to call it leaning in to all of this and not letting, if I want to say people fool me with their words. I know better now.
What kind of work do the two of you do together for social justice issues?
Well, we've led a couple of workshops. We have several times a year, we'll run workshops for our communities, but also like for our Nia communities, but also for anyone interested in embodied social justice. So those are workshops that are interactive. They're part learning, but also embodied practice of what it is that we're talking about. And then running that through our Nia practice, whichever concepts are being discussed.
What does embodied social justice mean?
So embodied social justice is the concept that in unequal societies, the way people are treated are going to have an effect on the bones, the muscles, the tissues, the nerves, the heart, the lungs, the eyes, the ears. It is going to affect the body somehow. And studying to understand how that maybe that numbness or that unwillingness, that stricture in the voice every time I go to speak my truth, that sensation could be driven by social norms that say, well, if a Black woman speaks up, then she's just being an angry Black woman. So maybe I regulate how I go to present my voice, which then can cause strain and stress, right? And so
Yep.
how that interplays, or maybe I walk into a room smaller, kind of like how Jen said, for anorexia, breathing big and taking up space is something that they don't want. Well, as a Black woman, I may not breathe real big. I may not expand because I don't want to take up space. And all of that then constricts the body, right? And when you start constricting around
Yep.
your organs,
Yeah.
right, your
Yep.
organs need space. And if you constrict in, what's going to happen to you just from a physical standpoint?
I'm curious to hear what sort of responses y'all have gotten from other people who are doing social justice work, other activists who have gone through your workshops or maybe have started a NIA practice of their own. What do you hear from them as far as the result of having their own practice?
Well, Teresa and I, we briefly touched on it earlier, but we're both NIA trainers, which means
Mhm.
that we lead trainings for people who want to take the NIA training to, the next step beyond being a student. So we have led trainings where we run this idea of embodied social justice, and specifically the concepts, as Teresa mentioned, of safety, dignity, and belonging through the training. And we've had some really positive feedback, although I do have to say that this is, I want to say this delicately, this is a new frontier
Okay.
in our practice. And we are kind of, and I give Teresa all the credit for this, but the change makers in our organization. So that's, that has its ups and its downs in terms of challenging, because really what we're doing is challenging the status quo. And
You're rocking the boat.
Yeah.
we're just asking questions and wanting our practice to evolve with the current landscape of where we're going in terms of respecting that people don't fall into a gender binary, that people that we have people choosing to be in bodies that they're meant to be in, and various other social justice concepts, diversity not to mention, the least of which, right? So it's been inspiring to start to establish ourselves as that resource. And it's also sometimes equally frustrating to speak to a group of people who may be not ready to hear what we have to say.
So how do you handle that? I mean, I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you do if you're just in front of people and you're like, this is a great thing, you should do it, and they're like,
I had an experience here a couple weeks ago where I actually came in after a group of DE&I leaders at a local university had been offsite doing an all-day retreat, and somebody asked if I would come in and kind of present the concept of embodied social justice to them. And so I got there a little early, and of course everything was up in the head, right? Everything was dialogue, thinking. So they finished the day. Here I come in and I ask them, invite them to start moving, and the looks on their faces and ask them even just to kind of close their eyes and just start to sense their own bodies, right? And even for individuals who do DE&I work day in and day out, they really hadn't given themselves consideration their body. And it was 2 hours, right? And at the beginning, and I've done this long time, you can read people's faces and everything. And I just kept going, right? And at first I would ask for feedback, nothing. And then, maybe kind of halfway in, I said, does anybody have anything to share? Boom. The shares just started flowing, right? People started talking about what they were sensing in their bodies, what they were feeling. They were starting then to connect oh my goodness, if I didn't even realize that I was having this in my body, then imagine how the people who I'm training must be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're sitting here listening to me and they're numb. And
Yeah.
and I hadn't realized that. And so all of this then starts to churn. And what I would say, and Jen can jump in if she disagrees, I would say anybody who gives us a chance, that's usually what happens. The issue is if we present this, whether we want to come to a conference or the things that we've done over the years, once we get the foot through the door, I don't think anybody's ever regretted that they let us in. It's
Awesome.
just getting our foot through the door.
Sure. It's
Awesome.
kind of a new concept.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about, Jennifer, you said that you suffered from adult onset anorexia that was really also over-exercise addiction. What is the difference between like the work that you do, the movement, and over-exercising or exercising to lose weight or exercising for a body shape? All of that we've all been caught up in so long.
Yeah, great question. So I would say when I was in the throes of my eating disorder and exercise addiction, exercise was a tool for punishment.
Yeah.
It was punishment and control, right? So
Yeah.
living in this constant state of fear of not belonging, not being accepted, not being good enough because my body didn't measure up to these impossible standards. Again, I was numbing out to do that intensity of exercise. I had to because it was painful. And now I feel like when I'm moving, it's more intuitive. It's not prescriptive. It's not like, I can tell you there's so many rules I had.
Yeah, I know those rules.
Yeah. So many rules. And now the gift that Nia has given me is that it's now based on how I feel. At the end of the day, I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good. So if there's no timer being set or anything, I just want to move in ways that feel good. And I also am very careful. I recently started swimming again, and but I'm very careful that I don't time myself, that I make sure to have some kind of social interaction. So I'm not isolating, which is something that I used to do with movement, and that I'm like truly listening to my body. Like it doesn't matter how much time I've been in the pool. Like if I'm tired, I'm tired. That's it. 10 minutes, like whatever. It's an ongoing practice for sure, but it's trusting that my body knows, and that these arbitrary rules or measurements or what have you are just that, they're arbitrary. I have to treat my wise body with respect and listen to it, like, and respond to it. So, I mean, I'm not saying this might sound like I've got this down pat. I don't.
I was going to ask, do you ever in the midst of exercise think, oh, I should do this because by tomorrow I'll be a size smaller? Does it creep in?
Not to that level, but yeah, there are certain, it's the eating disorder brain the thoughts don't go away. It's just taper, like just kind of turning down the volume on them and constant dialogue with the unreasonableness of that. And the more I learn about social justice and capitalism, and the more I see that I'm just being oppressed by these things in the name of making companies rich, right? And that's not me. That's not the wisdom that lives within me. That's an external force.
So one thing that I was thinking about, and maybe this is my capitalism showing, I don't know, or my conditioning showing, but there's so much talk lately, talk about like functional fitness and losing muscle mass, so you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to stay healthy and to age well and not lose your strength and not lose your independence. And I just kept thinking, is this practice going to help with aging well? Or am I just literally just stuck in the conditioning of, oh, let me go and buy another program because they just want my money?
Yeah, no, totally. And that's it. And that's where I think I rely a lot more on my intuition now, I think, than I ever did. And I don't want some, dude bro telling me like I want, so I feel like the people who look like me are the ones that I want to learn from. And yeah, you can read the literature. There was a report that came out, I forget which university, somewhere here in Canada though, where they said they were talking about weightlifting, and they were talking about how it doesn't matter the intensity. Like everyone thinks you have to like pump, iron, but it's not intensity. It's more the habitual, like that you're doing it on a regular basis. That's where the benefit lies. It's not that you do some certain prescriptive way. And then, as I said, intuitive movement, like, and part of our Nia practice is getting down on the floor and crawling around. And that has so many benefits for the joints and just mobility wise. The other day I was playing in the playground. Like I was like, that was my movement for the day. And I don't know. I just think I spent so much of my time being so serious and so rigid that now it's just like, I just want to do what feels good.
Yeah. I think the issue I find with intuition is it my intuition or is it something else? Because I like today I woke up and my first thought was, I don't want to go running. I don't feel like it. But then I looked at it and I asked myself, I'm like, do you really not want to go running? What's it about? And then I said to myself, well, I'll just run a little bit and see how I feel. Well, I ended up feeling great. And I ran 4 miles and I was like, this is the best run I've had in forever. But if I went with my first thought, I wouldn't have done the run. I would have gone for a walk instead. So to me, it's sort of like, which one is my intuition? Yep. Right? Which voice is telling me?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
my
where
intuition
I am, I think.
Thinks it wants cake every day. Is that right? Or is that?
Well, and I think that's the beauty of getting a deeper, closer relationship with your body, right?
Yeah.
And those then different conversations, you start to know where they're coming from, and you really start then to know and learn what your body really needs or really wants, right?
And sometimes it does want cake.
And sometimes it really does want cake. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with cake. I'm a little curious, going back at the very beginning, like, how did you all find Nia? It's not a household, at least as far as I know. I mean, it's not like, oh, there's yoga and there's running and there's, like, how did it come into your view, even like your awareness?
Good question.
Yeah.
So the long story short, I have a form of muscle cancer that had eaten through a lot of muscle and 2 of my ribs. After the surgery, you're talking about your body, I think that it wanted to move, but with all of the healing that it was doing fine, but it kept saying it wanted to move. Long story short, I happen to be reading an employee newsletter, that we got from our employee assistance program, like the monthly wellness newsletter. And there was this little article about Nia. And in my mind, I thought, well, how difficult can it be if you're doing it barefoot and you've tried everything else? Why shall go to this go to this class? And that's it. Took my first class. I don't know that I had a sensation whether I liked it or didn't like it, but what happened was the next day I wasn't sore. I didn't hurt. You did stretches, when you couldn't hardly even walk around the block. Like, so it was kind of like, this isn't possible. So then I went back again. So it was more of a mental thing than it was a body thing at the beginning. But every time I went, the next day I felt good. I got up. I wasn't sore. Well, I need to go again. And again.
Yeah. I'm a speech language pathologist in my other life. And I was working with a rehab company. And as a sort of team building exercise, we went to this Nia class. And at first, which is a pattern for me. I mean, over the years, I've become less judgmental, but at first I thought it was bizarre. I thought, what do you mean? Take off your shoes. What do you mean? Be kind to your body. That was not part of my vernacular at all. But yeah, that was my introduction. And I I was skeptical at first, but then I went to classes over the years and then did my training. And actually, with the totally wrong motive, I did the teacher training program because I was in the depths of my anorexia and exercise addiction. I had been let go from work. So I thought, I was put on a medical leave. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll take this training, I'll teach this practice, and then this will be my way. I'll make my career out of it, and I'll hold on to my eating disorder, my exercise. Well, that didn't happen. Fortunately, it was a big part of why.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. And so now, movement is much more balanced for me. But yeah, there's just like a ton of life lessons that came out of this for me.
One more question I want to ask that's kind of political. I don't remember whose website I saw it on, but somebody said there are racist roots of fat phobia. Anyone want to take that one on?
Yeah, of course. Teresa, is that okay if I...
You go right ahead.
Okay. I'm no expert in history and so on, but I do know that there's a persona around, larger bodied Black women that the sort of, I'm not going to say this right, Teresa. So the sort of mammy persona, and that being tied up with the idea that fat is less than, Black is less than. It's like a kind of an othering thing. And I wish I could quote someone who really knew the exact, details around that. There are just these tropes around fatness and Blackness as being inferior, right? And historically where that comes from. And Teresa, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, we could get, deep into U.S. history where Black women were taxed and treated along the same lines as men, right? And so that whole idea of, if you're going to use the word feminine, that somehow a Black woman, even in the tax structure at the beginning of the United States, wasn't seen as feminine.
Oh,
right?
That's painful.
It is painful. So, and then, like I said, we could just go on from there. But yeah, in that othering, and so then, kind of bringing it to, to today, of just all of a sudden, just because, the Supreme Court, declares, well, everybody's equal. Well, they don't have a magic wand, right? And just because you say it doesn't make it true.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And we carry that history, that treatment in our tissues, right? It doesn't just all of a sudden just disappear, and epigenetics say you carry 7 generations
I've heard
of
that.
that in your body, right?
Mhm.
And so, if I've got 7 generations of the way that other Black women in my family
Mhm.
treated, sometimes, just sit with that, right? Of the way that my ancestors were treated, and then you just decide that we're all equal. Really? Really? Because what 7 generations of ancestors are sitting in your body? You know, the one who went to Harvard for the last 4
Right.
generations, right? Yeah. So like I said, don't I could go off on a diatribe on all of that for sure.
It's
Well, I
important to
actually
hear
want to,
that, though.
yeah, and I actually want to encourage that a little bit by asking, when you're using Nia techniques in the trainings and the workshops, and you address this, and you address inequality and inequity and the pain that our bodies carry and the trauma that our bodies carry, or the trauma that someone with an eating disorder carries, or whatever, how is that addressed in that workshop? How does Nia help to alleviate some of that? And maybe I'm getting a little too specific, but like, how are you getting that out of the body?
Well, I would say first and foremost is the permission to go looking for it. It's the permission to scan your body,
Mhm.
to sense for where it may land. And I'll tell you, I have, and I would love, I've got some family members who are amazing genealogists and some stuff that they are finding about our family, but I carry a lot of stuff in the middle of my left thigh.
Mm.
So when I scan my body and you ask me where my trauma, oppression, where my ancestors sit, it's my left thigh. And it is there. And so I
Mhm.
am waiting for somebody to uncover through, stories or whatever of why. And I know something must have happened to one of my ancestors, of something that explains why it is my left thigh. But
Mhm.
if I didn't have the tools and the techniques to go looking for it, or even realizing to stop and sense for it, I don't know I would have uncovered that. To me, that's kind of where it begins. And then what tools, what techniques, if on days, if that area is speaking louder to me, what sort of tools and techniques do I have to listen
Mhm.
and respond, right? And I don't know that I would have those type of tools without Nia, and then other, going back to the word somatic practices to help with that.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to that the power of our imagination and the ability to use our imagination to create what I'll call energy flow, movement through our bodies, and the visualization, which has been so helpful to me. One of the sort of ways that I can move energy, clear stagnation,
Mhm.
simply through the power of my mind. And that's one way too to help get into sensation for me, to create visual images of things flowing through my body, like water flowing, the blood flowing through my veins, and bringing in a bit more creativity to the whole
Mhm.
experience as well.
Mhm. Using
That word,
visualization.
I was gonna say that word creative. See,
Yeah.
she balances me, right?
Using all the senses, right? There's so much, it's fascinating, the research coming out about visualization and imagination, and the brain not knowing the difference between what you imagine and what's real, which on the one hand can be really frightening, but on the other hand can be really healing and powerful.
Wow. I'm almost speechless at the powerful words that both of you speak. Was there anything that you wanted to say to our audience that we didn't give you the opportunity to?
It's just been such an honor to be here.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't think of anything either except to say thank you as well. We love the opportunity to be able to speak about this as much as we enjoy being able to move about it as well.
Nice. And
Love
Teresa,
that.
you and I live close together, so I suggest we have lunch soon.
I would love to. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
ladies, thank you so much for being with us and sharing such powerful words and emotions and stories and about Nia and how it's impacted the both of you and how you're using it to impact other people.
Thank you for having us.
So much.
Raquel, I just love social justice warriors. I just
Exactly.
do.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I feel like I just love them.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Well, yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And what it shows me is that there are so many different ways to be a social justice warrior.
Yes.
And there's so many ways to help our society be better. And it just, talking with Teresa and Jennifer, it brought it back to what we've talked about many, many times. It starts with you. It starts with the individual and it ripples out from there.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting is that theme has repeated itself over and over again to like kind of get ourselves in order, healthy, embodied, in order to give that work back out to society. But then on the other hand, systematically, we as individuals can't change the systems unless we look at the big corporations, at government, etc. And a bunch of us doing all of these little things, now they're not little, they're huge things, can unite and do this together if we're healthy, but we cannot if we're like one single being who's still in a lot of trauma and pain trying to change the big business. I'm not saying this well, but
well, basically you can't be fully in your power and in your ability to affect change if you are not healthy, whether that's mentally or emotionally or physically. You have to be fully in your being to be able to be fully effective.
Yeah, well, do you think you have to be 100% healed in order to be a social justice warrior?
No.
Okay,
no,
cool. Because I don't,
not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not. I know plenty of people aren't. I mean, look at our heroes. They were fallible human beings, and they were not perfect,
right,
but they had access to something to allow them to do the work that they did, whether they accessed it via, relationship to church or relationship to family or achieving health through therapy or whatever. There was something that allowed them to access what they needed to do the work that they were doing. And that's what Nia is doing for Jennifer and Teresa and for all the other people that they have trained and influenced, either directly or indirectly. Having that access allows you to move forward. I mean, think about it. If you are oppressed in any way, whether it's economically, health-wise, whatever, that is all that you are focused on.
Yeah.
But if you can move beyond that, if you can remove even just part of that barrier, that obstacle, you can do way more, and you can influence more people, and you can affect more of a change, because your energy can then go to something besides just getting over that obstacle.
Right. Right. And I think a lot of people don't see that. They don't see that very point.
Exactly.
That's
and
true.
Jennifer and Teresa, through their work, are helping people to see that. And they're helping people to get beyond it and access the energy so that they can do whatever it is that they need to do, whether it's social justice work or just living their lives.
Their work is so exciting because it's relatively new. It's very solution focused. It's talking about epigenetics. It's talking about generational trauma. It's talking about what we read about in that book, Gabor Mate. What is the book called?
The Myth of Normal.
The Myth of Normal was all about this. The You Can Heal Your Life was all about this. But it's taking the science of what they're learning and applying it in a way that is embodied, which has been the theme of our podcast since it started, even though we didn't self-select that theme.
Yeah.
We selected feminism, but I don't think there's been a single episode where we haven't talked about embodiment of some sort, or the unlearning and the relearning. It's just very, very, very exciting work. And I would encourage people to get involved.
Absolutely. Love it.
And if you like this episode, share it with a friend so that more people can hear about the work that they are doing, Jennifer and Teresa. And for all of my Ann Arbor friends, Teresa lives in our area.
There you go. Yeah. Seek her out. Go to her classes.
Yes.
Yeah. Look them both up online and, see the work that they're doing and do one of their classes. It's accessible for everybody. You don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be, quote unquote, able-bodied. You can be in a chair. There's ways that this is accessible for anybody who wants to utilize it.
And that in itself is social justice work.
Amen.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.